Grand Admiral Fumiko Bhakti McPherson stood resplendent in her uniform of black and gold, gazing silently at the viewscreen as the enemy approached the Kuiper Belt. The last of the Terran fleet stood behind her, watching and waiting as the planetoid-sized craft of the Empire moved in, though nowhere nearly as swift and sure as they might have once been. A cold smile filled her dark eyes as she saw the enemy hesitate, wary of whatever traps the hairless apes of Earth had in store for them. They had learned. Oh yes, they had learned quite well just how dangerous humans could be. "Open a channel to the fleet," she told her comm officer. "Record for the buoys." "Channel open," the officer replied quietly, as the Admiral stared into the camera, her hands clasped behind her back. For 100,000 years the Empire has stood, and in that time they have crushed one world after another. The apex predators of a dozen suns united in a single goal, the slaughter and enslavement of all who oppose them. Many have tried. All have failed. She looked at her bridge crew and saw the fear in their eyes. They knew death was coming for them, and they were not wrong. But not all deaths are equal. When humanity broke free of the solar system, we planted our colonies on a dozen worlds, never realizing what lay in store for us. It was a ship of Strotkarii refugees, our first contact with an alien race, who told us of the Empire. They shared with us their databanks, all that they knew, and then fled for distant space. They were the first. They were not the last. From that day forward, we gazed up at the stars and prepared for what was to come. The first envoys of the Empire came in their great ships and demanded our surrender. They batted aside our attacks with contempt, smashing our ships as casually as we might swat a fly. They laughed at the weak and pathetic children of Earth, for they had not yet learned humanity's secret: that we are defiant. Every ship in the Terran fleet watched the broadcast. Every officer, every crewman gazed in rapt attention as the Admiral's words washed over them, filling their hearts and souls with quiet pride. She leaned forward, gripping the console in front of her, her voice dark and dangerous. "We were defiant when we first climbed down from the trees, clutching rocks and sticks to fend off our own predators. We were defiant when we refused to freeze in the long cold, instead stealing fire from the heavens to keep us warm. We were defiant when we gazed at the mountains, the deserts, and the oceans that tried to pen us in and vowed to overcome them. And when man turned against man, when our own slave masters and warlords tried to subjugate us, we stood our ground. At Thermopylae, at Masada, at Cameron, at 1,000 other battles, both named and forgotten, we were defiant." Admiral McPherson lips parted, her teeth flashing in a feral smile. "We have harried and harassed the Imperial fleet at every turn, using every lesson 10,000 years of warfare have taught us, for they have stopped laughing. We learned much from our enemy, but they learned even more. We taught them that nowhere was safe. We taught them that until a human is dead, he is not beaten. And we taught them when you kill one human, another will take his place. For we are defiant." The Admiral's wolf-like grin was met with thousands just like it. "And now, the Imperial fleet has come to grind our homeworld under its heel. For the Empire to survive, they must defeat us, or else others will take up our cause. In this final battle, they have brought their entire weight to bear, holding nothing back. They outnumber us 1,000 to 1. Our ships pale in comparison to theirs, and yet we will still be victorious." Her eyes blazed with promise as she snarled, "For we are defiant!" A roar erupted on the decks of every ship as the children of Earth howled with their admiral. Make them pay for every inch of ground. No quarter asked and none given. "All ships, fire!" The Terran fleet exploded with flame as beams of energy smashed into the Empire's ships. The enemy staggered, caught by surprise, as stealthed torpedoes found their weak points, detonating by the hundreds. But the Empire shook off the damage like a maddened bull, charging forward, returning fire that wiped whole squadrons from existence. Earth's ships fired until they drained their cores and then hurled themselves in one kamikaze run after another. But not even the bravest could stand up to the withering fire forever, and the humans soon found themselves being pushed back. The ground bases of Titan, of Ganymede, of Ceres all added their fire, each falling silent one by one as the enemy hammered the moons into rubble. The Imperial dreadnoughts were caught by surprise once again as they led them straight into a minefield, as millions of nuclear weapons detonated, scattered and hidden amongst the asteroids. But it was not enough. The Imperial fleet had been winnowed, and few ships did not bear the scars of battle. Of the Terrans, less than 1 ship in 10 had survived. While the batteries at Olympus Mons and Tharsis made a dent, soon they too fell silent. With the blue-white orb of Earth at their backs, the humans made their final stand. The Imperials, sensing victory within their grasp, threw all they had into the ragged defenders. One ship after another erupted in flame, until only a scattered handful of hulks remained. And then, a final broadcast was detected from the human flagship. The once proud command deck was now in flames as bodies lay strewn about. Admiral McPherson was almost unrecognizable, her face and hair singed, blood pouring from a dozen wounds, the gaping hole of a missing orb showing the skull beneath the flesh. She gazed at the camera with her one remaining eye, and laughed. The woman howled with glee, as the enemy commanders stared at one another in confusion. They knew enough of humans to recognize the signs of humor. But what sort of creature laughs at the imminent destruction of their homeworld? Admiral McPherson, straining at the effort, propped up her arm and raised her middle finger at the enemy. She held it there for a moment, cackling like a demon as she flipped them the bird, and then stabbed it downwards, depressing a red blinking icon on her console. Not a single ship of the mighty Imperial fleet survived, as Saul went nova. The young students stared in silence as the image faded from the screen. Their teacher gave them a few minutes to digest what they just witnessed, before rising to his feet. When Earth first learned of the Empire, they knew faced a choice. Submit or perish. He smiled, despite the horror they'd just witnessed. Instead, they chose a third option. They knew they could never hold Earth against the Imperial fleet, that if they fought, the homeworld of man would die. So they used their time to remove all that they could, not just those individuals they could save, but its art, its history, its genetic diversity. They scattered humanity to the winds and sacrificed their own planet to give all of us a chance at freedom. He stared somberly at the class. So on this day, the day of remembrance, we honor the unselfishness of humanity. We lift our gaze to the skies and recite what mankind taught us. The children of 30 different worlds rose as one, as each in their own language repeated the holy words. We are defiant.